What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? This is Tony Vinchelle with the Stronger You Fitness, ASU Fit, and the Becoming a Stronger You movement. Back to you tonight for episode number 7 of ASU Fit TV, day number 7 of 67 days of content that I am providing based on questions that you are asking me on Twitter, on Facebook, in my inbox, and via text message. So, title of tonight's webinar is part 2 of what's the skinny on fats, good fats versus bad fats, and how to use them. And if you were on yesterday's or last night's webinar, if you had a chance to see episode 6, webinar number 6, you will know that I gave some foundational information about what fats are, what fats we actually need in our diet, what it means to have a healthy fat balance, and why it's important for us to have a healthy fat balance. And so because I gave so much information yesterday, I had decided that I was going to turn this into a 2-part series, but this is actually going to be a 3-part series because I want to make sure that I give you some good information, and I want to make sure that I give it to you in a time frame that you are able to digest and understand and ask questions and all that other kind of stuff. So in part 2, as part of this, we are going to be discussing the low fat diet. So again, if you remember yesterday, I said that I was going to teach you guys what fat is, what fat balance means, and then talk to you about the low fat diet and the ketogenic diet or the high fat diet, and how you can use those to your advantage, when to use them, and what is necessary and all that kind of good stuff. So we are talking about the low fat diet tonight. Low fat diet seems to be all the craze because everybody is afraid of fat. Oh my God, fat is bad. Oh my God, we hate fat. And so if you were on the webinar yesterday, you will understand, or if you got to see that, you'll understand that not all fat is bad. It takes fat to burn fat, and fat is a very essential part of our it's a very essential part of our biology. It's a part of our physiology. There's so many purposes, and all of those things we went over yesterday or last night in the first part of the webinar. So I will tell you now, if you have not seen part 1, I would strongly encourage you to see part 1, please, because if you don't, then some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about tonight may not make as much sense. All right. So before I get into, well, first of all, let me go ahead and just tell you what the low fat diet is. Okay. A lot of people say low fat diet, and when I look at their plans or I listen to them talk, what they are discussing is not really a low fat diet. What they are discussing is a diet plan or a meal plan that has you utilizing the lower end of the normal range for fat intake. But that in and of itself is not a low fat diet. So it is recommended that the average person taking anywhere from 20 to 40% of their diet as dietary fats. And again, the difference between that 20 and 40% is going to be based on your metabolism, based on how well your body metabolizes carbs, based on your body shape, things of that nature. Okay. So anything that's going to be lower than 20%. So if your diet is less than 20% fat, then that is considered to be a low fat diet. Okay. But if you are doing 21% fat, 25% fat, 20% fat, that is not considered a low fat diet. That's just considered using the lower end of the recommended range for fat intake. All right. And if you have any questions about that, remember, you can always meet me on Twitter at @AStrongerYou. Okay. But hopefully that made some sense. All right. Now, it's also important to note that even on a low fat diet, if you are not paying attention to your caloric intake and caloric expenditure, you could still gain weight. So if you just exchange these high fat foods for low fat foods, that's fine. But if you're still eating too much and not exercising and not having any type of physical activity, then you're still going to gain weight. Okay. Low fat dieting is not automatically synonymous with weight loss. Okay. If you're going to be using a low fat diet, you also need to make sure that you are paying attention to your caloric intake and your caloric expenditure as well. So I wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. Now, before I talk to you about how to actually use a low-fat diet and when to use a low-fat diet, I want to go over some of the risks with you first. It is extremely important that when you start changing things, when you start changing the way that you eat, especially when you're making drastic changes like using a low-fat diet. Remember, low-fat is anything lower than 20% of fat intake. It's important that you understand the risks and that you know exactly what it is that you are getting into before you embark upon this. All right. So if you watched part 1, which I hope you did, then you will have seen that we went over an entire list of everything that fat is necessary for in our physiologically, in our physiology, in our body systems. So here are some of the risks of utilizing a low-fat diet. The first one is going to be poor brain function. What exactly do we mean by that? That means not being able to concentrate, not being able to remember things. Also associated with an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. So those are the things that we're talking about when we say lowered brain function. All right. Uncontrolled and unbalanced inflammation. So remember yesterday, one of the items we discussed was that the reason why we need a healthy fat balance is because having a healthy fat balance helps us to manage inflammation in our bodies. And being able to properly manage the inflammation in your body will help you to decrease your risk of disease over time. So if you can kind of piece that together, if having a healthy fat balance helps to manage your inflammation, which helps to decrease your disease risk, then having a low-fat diet for an extended period of time causing uncontrolled and unbalanced inflammation will actually lead to an increased risk of disease. All right, which could also lead to heart problems as well. Hormone imbalances. And this is extremely important because this is especially when it comes to the balance of estrogen and the balance of testosterone. If you remember from the first webinar, we discussed that fats are used to make hormones. Okay, they are part of the precursors used to make hormones. And so when you are on a low-fat diet, you don't have as much to work with. So your hormone regulation and your hormone production is stifled because you're not giving your body what it needs to be able to do that. Now, low-fat diets can also lead to overeating over time. And I'm going to tell you why. So our bodies, our taste buds are specifically wired for 3 different things: salt, sugar, and fat. Okay. If you notice, if you are sodium deficient, your body is going to crave salty things. Okay, if your blood sugar is low, your body is going to crave sugary sweets or sugary items. Or if your cortisol levels are high and you're super duper stressed out, your body is going to crave that sugar. Where your body will also crave fats as well. And so when you put yourself on a low fat diet, then your body is going to recognize that. Okay. And what happens now, remember earlier I said that fats are necessary for hormone production and they are necessary for hormone regulation and hormone balancing. The problem with a low-fat diet over an extended period of time is that it begins to affect the ghrelin hormone, and that is GHRELIN for anybody who wants to look that term up and study it a little bit further. And for all intents and purposes, to make this very short, the ghrelin hormone is the hormone that tells our bodies when we are full. Okay, so imagine having an imbalance in that hormone. Well, if that hormone is not functioning properly, 1 or 2 things is going to happen. You're either always going to feel like you're full, so you're never going to want to eat. Or in the case of what happens with a low-fat diet, you're going to always want to eat eventually over time because that hormone is not functioning properly. So it will lead to overeating over time. Okay. The low fat diets over an extended period of time. Notice I am saying, I'm saying over an extended period of time, and we're going to talk about what that time frame is going to be, what the optimal time frame is going to be. Over an extended period of time can lead to insulin resistance, which ultimately will lead or can lead to diabetes down the line. All right. Again, if you watched part 1, you will remember that part of having one of the reasons why we need to have a healthy fat balance is because fats help us with our mood regulation. Okay, they help to decrease depression and anxiety, and they help to decrease the probability of mood swings and things of that nature. So when you are on a low fat diet, understand that you are not providing your body with a balanced fat profile. You're not providing your body with a balanced lipid profile. And so when that happens, you do run an increased risk of having to deal with depression and anxiety and things of that nature. And it can also cause digestive issues. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and throw that out and put that out here on the table, because I hear in a lot of these groups and on a lot of different pages that, I'm doing low fat, fat is the devil, no fat, no fat, no fat, no fat. And it's really because people don't really understand how important it is for us to have a healthy fat balance. Okay, so before you get into this thing, I wanted you to know what the risks are. Again, I am not a physician, I am not a medical professional, but I do know how to study. I have done graduate level research. If you want to know, ask specific questions about my accolades and my education and things of that nature, you can inbox me, you can Google me, whatever it is that you want to do. Okay. All right. So here we go. How do you create a low fat diet? Okay. How does this happen for you? So the first thing you want to do is if you're going to choose to use a low fat diet, you want to make sure that you are increasing your vegetables. Okay, you're increasing your plant sources. The other thing that I would tell you is that you may also want to decrease your complex carbohydrate sources like rice and potatoes and things of that nature, and attempt to get the majority of your carbohydrates from plant sources. Why? Well, because again, fats are necessary for hormone regulation. And when you are eating rice and potatoes and things of that nature, you're going to have insulin spikes, which eventually could lead to imbalances in your cortisol levels, which ultimately lead to insulin resistance. And all of this is going to happen because you don't have, when you're on a low fat profile diet, you're not providing your body with a healthy lipid profile. Okay. So the other reason why you may want to increase your vegetables, increase your plant sources, is because you're going to be able to eat more. Understand that, again, on this low fat diet, you're not giving your body the fats. That ghrelin hormone is going to start to be affected. Eventually, you'll reach a point where you're going to be hungry all the time. And it's very easy to overeat during that time, especially when you're eating these small meals and you never feel like you are full. So if you increase your plant sources, increase your vegetables, these are high volume, low calorie foods that you can put into your diet during this particular time. And what does it do? It helps you to fill up your belly, because sometimes we just need to go ahead and fill our bellies up so that we can be comfortable. All right. All right. So I've already said that. Okay. And then, as you can see, I'm looking through here my notes, and I do a lot of ad-libbing and stuff like that, so I don't want to repeat myself. So the other thing that you may need to do is include beans and tuna as some other low-fat sources of protein. Remember that our animal proteins tend to have a lot of fat, especially the ones that we really, really, really like, because we've been evolutionarily rewired to enjoy those tastes. That's the reason why it's really hard for a lot of people to transition into vegetarianism or veganism if that's something that they try to do. That's one of the reasons why that transition is so hard, because through evolution, we have been wired to crave the taste of animal fat. So you may want to include some beans and some canned tuna as well. Okay. Make sure that you are getting your omega 3s. And if you do not know the importance of omega 3s, please go back and watch part 1 because I gave a pretty detailed explanation as to why those are important. But if you're working with an unbalanced lipid profile, then it's going to be extremely important that you are getting your omega-3s. All right. Now, with your animal proteins, make sure that before you cook them that you are trimming off any skin or any extra fat layers that may be attached to that meat. Okay, because again, this is low fat. You want to make sure that comes off. Even for the purposes of cooking the meat, you're gonna have to remove those additional fat layers. And so when you remove those fat layers, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna need to grill or bake or broil. Use some kind of method that allows the juices from the meat, because sometimes we miss small little pieces of fat. So use some type of method that allows the juices from the fat to drip away from the meat so that you don't have that as part of the meat that you're eating. As you can already see, this diet takes some sacrifice. And it also takes some planning and preparation, and it's going to take some commitment. And I'll talk to you about what that commitment level is going to look like when we start talking about when exactly you're supposed to be using this diet. Absolutely no frying of any of your foods. That should be a given, but just in case it's not, no frying. All right. The other thing you want to do is you want to cut out your cheese, cut out your butter, your creamy sauces, your sour cream. And during this time, you want to experiment with different kinds of herbs. I keep all kinds of herbs in my pantry. Some of them I use, some of them I don't. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. Sage and basil and oregano and just all of these different herbs. And this is the time to experiment with this. If all else fails, you can always squeeze some lemon juice over it. Lemon juice makes everything taste better, at least to me and for more people. All right. Now, this piece is a very important part. So if you are taking notes or if you have not been taking notes, I suggest that you go ahead and write this down because this is extremely important. Please make sure that your low-fat diet does not turn into a VLCD. I'm going to say that again. Please make sure that your low-fat diet does not turn into a VLCD. What is a VLCD? A VLCD is a very low calorie diet. And that diet, a very low calorie diet, should only be used during specific times with the help of a professional. It should be strictly monitored. So how are you going to prevent that? Because this happens a lot. A lot of people will choose a low fat diet, and what happens is they don't make up for those calories. So then it now becomes a VLCD, which is a very low calorie diet. So what happens? They drop a bunch of weight and then all of a sudden they plateau, and then all of a sudden you start to see the weight come back on because it's become counterproductive because your calories are too low. So how are you going to prevent this low fat diet from becoming a VLCD? You are going to do this by making sure that you accommodate for those additional calories that you would have gotten from fat. And you substitute those calories with your carbohydrates and with your proteins. And if you want to know how much protein to use, then if you go back to the video from a few days ago, I'm getting we're a little bit further now, so I don't remember the exact day, but there is an episode on ASU Fit TV, part of the 67 days, where I discuss how to create your own fat loss diet. And in that video, I discuss how to determine how much protein you should be eating. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are using that formula, you are using that technique to make sure that you are filling in those additional gaps. All right, increasing your vegetables as well. I think we talked about that already. All right, so when should you use this diet? If you remember in earlier videos, when I talked about creating your own workout plan, creating your own diet plan, I discussed the need for making sure that you schedule your assessments. However it is that you are going to assess your progress, whether that's looking at the scale, whether that's doing skin calipers, or using a machine to determine your visceral fat level, whatever it is that you're going to do, you need to make sure that you are consistent with that schedule, because that's going to be very important if you're going to be choosing the low fat diet. If you have been exercising, yes, I said exercising, for at least 5 to 7 hours per week, and you have followed your meal plan, and in doing so, you have plateaued for 3 to 4 weeks in succession, so 3 to 4 weeks in a row, you have not seen any change, then you may want to consider doing the low-fat diet as a means to your fat loss, or as a means to your weight loss. Here's the thing. You've got to be honest with yourself, okay? So remember what I said. Your plateau has to have lasted for a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks. So not 1 week, not 3 days, for those of you who like to weigh yourself every single day. That plateau had to have lasted for a minimum of 3 to 4 weeks, which means that you need to have been consistent with your assessments. But you also need to make sure that you are telling the truth. If you know that you have only been about 60% compliant with your current meal plan, do not switch over to a low-fat diet because you think it's going to get you better results. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because if you haven't already been consistent with one meal plan, you are definitely not going to be consistent with the sacrifices that are necessary to make this meal plan work. I'm going to let you sit on that for a minute. The other thing too is that anytime you change your diet plan, you've got to give your body time to get used to it. You've got to get your body time to settle into that. So make sure that you are telling the truth when you're doing this evaluation. Now, another reason why you may want
always tell the truth.
Yes, always tell the truth.
Truth is the right way to go.
Yes, right? Truth is the right way to go. Thank you.
What you do?
Having kids. So here's another reason why you may want to use it. If you come from a situation where you have been consistently eating a very high fat diet, and this has been a pattern for you consistently for at least a year, then you may want to consider using the low fat diet. Okay. Now, this approach should only be used about 8 to 12 weeks in succession, no more than twice a year, unless you are being heavily monitored by a medical professional. And at this point, I'm not even going to say a fitness professional. Unless you are being heavily monitored by a medical professional, because those side effects that we discussed in the beginning of this video, and that's only a few of them because, you know, I got tired of writing at some point, and I didn't want to spend the first 20 minutes of this episode going over side effects. But those are only a few of them. And those are very serious side effects. Okay, this is not something that you want to play with. So unless you are being heavily monitored by a medical professional, not a fitness professional, a medical professional, then you should not be using the low-fat diet for any longer than 8 to 12 weeks in succession, twice a year. Okay? And I'm even a little leery about giving that 12-week mark. Of course, you're going to assess this and do whatever fits you. But those are some serious side effects. And so you need to take that into consideration. All right. So that is all that I have for you tonight. Tomorrow is going to be part 3, where we discuss the ketogenic diet, which is the high fat diet. As always, if you like this information, if you find value in this information, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. I will definitely appreciate that. If you have any questions about any of the content that I have presented tonight, reach out to me on Twitter at AStrongerU. So that's ASTRONGERU. You can reach out to me on Twitter and I will answer your questions. Or you can reach out to me on my Facebook page at /AStrongerU Fitness. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. And please let me know what you think. Until I talk to you all again, stay strong, stay beautiful, and always, always, always work towards becoming a stronger you. Peace out.